Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news. A controversial consultant hits back at critics.
The tourism minister says he's not backing down over his recent statements about the Nassau Airport Development Board.
The hunt is on for 3 Cubans who escaped the Carmichael Road detention center.
Plus, the health minister walks back comments on a health contract for Abaco.
News is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina McNeil. Topping news tonight, the culture consultant whose contract was brought under scrutiny by Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar says it is heartbreaking to hear the things that have been said about him on social media and in tabloids. But with a 3-year contract that doesn't expire until September, he's still more than qualified to continue his work.
I'm still under contract, and if I'm kept on, of course, I'll deliver that contract. It's heartbreaking.
Ian Poitier tells our news that he missed de Aguilar's communication in the House of Assembly on Thursday night, but began hearing about it on Friday morning, including outrage over his $400,000 per year salary. But he says any concern over cost could have been resolved in a conversation.
It was obviously very shocking. I think what made it all the more so is I'd been due to meet the minister at 4 o'clock the previous day, and the meeting had been abruptly cancelled. So, and I hadn't been given another date, so I was waiting to hear kind of when I would meet him. I've been trying to meet him since the election.
Last week, de Aguilar told parliamentarians that senior tourism executives said whatever Poitier did produce, in their professional opinion, his services were not worth $1 million. Poitier says while both the permanent secretary and director general of tourism knew the range of his duties, there was still far more outside the scope of tourism that he was responsible for.
Since early last year, I've been based at the office of the Prime Minister. So people at the Ministry of Tourism would necessarily not know everything I've worked on. And as I said in my statement, my work, a lot of which was outside of what I was contracted to do initially, stretches across, I think, about 5 or 6 areas.
From cultural policy development to 15 large-scale productions and communication strategy, Poitier says he was overworked and stressed, leading to health complications.
It's been very broad, and because a lot of the things I've worked on perhaps are not well known or confidential to particular ministers, I couldn't say, directly to perhaps tourism colleagues. That's what it was. But they know that I was busy. I mean, I had a very stressful health event where I basically lost part of the sight in one eye in November, which was entirely down to stress and overwork. I don't say this to complain. I was well paid and I had to deliver.
In the midst of that, Poitier maintains that if all of his work and associated costs were itemized, anyone would see that the government got much more value for money. Now he says his reputation is hanging in the balance.
The minister said there was something fishy about the arrangement. People were calling me a crook and a thief, that I was doing something underhand with the government, that I was giving backhanders to people or whatever. People called for me to go to jail, to be arrested. I don't live like that.
Poitier says he left the Bahamas at the age of 15 and only returned home to help his country. This as he awaits a meeting with de Aguilar to discuss the way forward. Well, Tourism and Aviation Minister Dionisio de Aguilar is not backing down from comments he made about the Nassau Airport Development Company's board in the House of Assembly last week. De Aguilar claims board members were dismissed despite former Chairman Anthony McKinney's assertion that they were not fired. Jasmine Brown has that story.
While brushing past the press as he exited the House of Assembly this afternoon, the tourism minister insisted he stands by the comments he made last week. De Aguilar said very little as he left Parliament wearing a grin, but he maintained that he stands by his statement that the board of the Nassau Airport Development Company was summarily dismissed for acting improperly, despite documentation provided by the chairman of the board that suggests otherwise. De Aguilar said in the House of Assembly on Thursday that the entire NAD board was summarily dismissed after it was revealed that it wrote off a third of the $3.3 million debt a politically connected tenant of LPIA had accumulated after failing to pay rent over a 5-year period. His comments prompted the former NAD chairman to issue a statement on Sunday evening, saying as chairman of the Airport Authority and NAD, he and most of the other members of the board submitted their resignations on May 16th, less than a week after the new administration came to office. He also released a copy of his resignation letter while maintaining that there was no direction from any politician directing the board on how to proceed with the settlement discussions with the company known as Patmore. When asked today if he stood by those statements, DeAguilar said he's not budging.
Everything I said is in the hands of I stand by what I said. I don't budge an inch.
Former Transport and Aviation Minister Glenys Hannah Martin also addressing the controversial issue today in the House of Assembly. Hannah Martin defended the board against the accusations made by DeAguilar, reading into the record of the House McKinney's resignation letter that was sent to Transport Minister Frankie Campbell on May 16th. She also tabled a letter McKinney received from Campbell asking him to stay on just a little longer.
I would like to lay these because these two letters indicate that unlike the minister who said these people sat in place and he had to summarily, or whatever the language was, summarily dismiss them, this letter shows that the members resigned from the board, were told not to do so. And I'm told that at a later stage, a call came, and this is what this document speaks to, Mr. Speaker, which invited them to put their resignations in.
DeAguilar has said the government will investigate the legality of the agreement with Patmore. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Meanwhile, Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands sought to clarify statements he made in his contribution to the budget debate last week. Sands is now backtracking from earlier statements that a company was paid $500,000 a month to clean an unopened clinic on Abaco. During his contribution last Wednesday, Sands focused on what he termed the former administration's lack of fiscal prudence, highlighting a number of contracts, including that $500,000 contract for the monthly cleaning of the Abaco clinic, which Sands said was closed. Well, since making that statement, Sands says he received new information from the ministry's finance officer, which contradicts his earlier statements.
The contracted works in question, a scope of works was prepared by the local government administrator in 2016. When the tenders box was opened, there was a single bid, and that bid was for $1 million per year. Given the fact that this bid was 100% more than the comparable bid for the Exuma mini hospital,
Sands says that bid was rejected and there was no retendering for the cleaning contract because the Abaco clinic was not ready to open. The health minister says that's when officials decided to initiate a select bidding process in order to have the facility open by April 2017.
On the 21st of April, the same vendor submitted a bid of $59,125 per month, which was also rejected. And ultimately, the amount agreed was for $44,139.73, inclusive of VAT, per month, for a total annual contract of $500,000. The contract was drawn up, but I am advised was never executed. And my ministry has been paying this in good faith on a monthly basis.
In other news, the search is on for 3 Cuban men who escaped the Carmichael Road Detention Center early Saturday morning. The escape, which immigration officials say appears to have been well thought out, has renewed calls for increased security at the facility. Kyle Joaquin tells us more.
Take a look at this security wall behind me that lines the Carmichael Road Detention Center. Just on top of it, you have some fencing as well as some barbed wire. Now, according to the Director of Immigration, the Cuban detainees somehow made their way up the wall, up to the fence, threw some blanket over the barbed wire, and made good their escape by hopping over the wall. The men have been identified as Carlos Daniel Abrias, Joel Valerio Hurtado, and Roberto Escora Consuega, all a part of a group of Cuban migrants captured by the U.S. Coast Guard last week and scheduled to be repatriated later this week.
And they know that we do repatriation frequently. We don't try to hold them up in detention center too long because of their background, so we try to get them out as quickly as possible.
But it's how the men escaped the heavily guarded detention center that has officials amazed. Like a scene out of a movie, the Cubans used a blanket to throw over the barbed wire to escape without injury before hopping the relatively high walls of the detention center. The immigration director also pointed out that on a small portion of the wall, there was no barbed wire. And after watching the surveillance footage of the escape, which was not released to the media, Pratt said it's clear more security measures need to be put in place.
We are taking a second look at our perimeters, and having reviewed our camera and the way how they escaped the wall, we do need to place some additional security measures around the perimeters to avoid any future escapes.
It's the first escape in years, according to Pratt, due to increased security measures that were put in place. And as the search continues for the 3 Cubans, Pratt said his biggest hope is that they don't hook up with Cubans living in Nassau.
Their goal is the United States. They're trying to get to the U.S., so they maybe, maybe not. Of course, there are Cubans. There are Cuban community here in the Bahamas as well. So I know if they reach those community in particular, we definitely won't hear from them. We may know where they are, but they wouldn't turn on their own people. More than likely, they won't. We've never, at least I've never known of any that turn in their own people.
The immigration director warns those harboring escapees that it's the same as harboring a criminal.
Harboring illegal immigrants, it's a crime also, and also can carry fines of $10,000 or 5 years imprisonment, up to. So if any Bahamians are listening, please, you can offer them food, but make sure, turn them over to us. They are escapees, and they should be captured, recaptured, and turn into the detention center for repatriation.
Police, Defense Force, and immigration officers have been combing areas of southern New Providence looking for the 3 Cubans. If you happen to spot any of them, you're asked to contact the detention center. Call 911, 919, or your nearest police station. For our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Still to come on our news, why the opposition leader says the budget only benefits the rich. That and more when our news returns.